When a woman walks away and jumps into something new, she usually believes the story. She's telling herself that this fresh start will wipe the slate clean, that whatever she felt for you will slowly fade, and that she can finally turn the page without looking back. She convinces herself that moving on means forgetting, and maybe for a moment she truly believes it. But what she never prepares for is the quiet power of a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't collapse in front of her decision. She never anticipates the strength of silence. And the truth is, nothing makes a woman remember you more intensely than the moment she realizes your world didn't crumble when she left. It's ironic, isn't it? She may have expected tears, questions, emotional chaos. She may have assumed you'd push, pull, argue, or explain yourself. She predicted a weakened version of you, a man who couldn't handle the loss. But what happened instead is the exact opposite of everything she imagined. You went silent. You stepped back into yourself. You didn't chase closure, validation, or attention. You simply accepted reality and decided to move forward. That silence, calm, controlled, unreactive, hits a woman far deeper than any emotional outburst could, because silence says things words never can. It says you respect yourself more than the situation. It says you're not dependent on her for emotional stability. It says your life continues with or without her. And a woman who once believed she mattered more than everything else suddenly feels a shift. She realizes you're not holding on to the memory of her. She realizes you're not checking for her, waiting for her, or circling around her decision. And when she sees that, something inside her begins to unravel. You become unforgettable not because you begged, but because you didn't. Not because you fought for her attention, but because you reclaimed your own. Silence creates a space where she's forced to confront her own mind. She tries to immerse herself in her new relationship, hoping it distracts her. She tries to convince herself she made the right choice. But the absence of chaos from your side becomes its own kind of pressure. She expected you to break. Instead, you elevated, and that contrast burns into her memory. In that silence, you start becoming something she didn't expect. The man she underestimated, the man she didn't fully appreciate, the man she didn't think would ever detach. She never imagined you'd handle her loss with dignity, but you did. She never imagined she'd be the one thinking about you when you were the one left behind, but she is, because the mind is strange like that. It clings to what it can't control, and it obsesses over what doesn't react the way it predicted. Your silence doesn't just bother her, it challenges her. It disrupts her narrative. It forces her to face the reality that you are stronger than she assumed, more disciplined than she expected, and more self contained than she believed. And the more you remain quiet, the more she realizes that her choice didn't weaken you, it elevated you. You didn't disappear, you evolved. And evolution has a way of making people rethink their decisions. So even though she may be with someone else, even though she may look happy on the surface, even though she may post smiles and moments that look perfect, your silence still lingers in the background of her mind like a shadow she can't escape. It's the reminder she didn't ask for, the truth she didn't want to confront, and the consequence she didn't predict, because sometimes the loudest message a man can send is spoken through absolute silence, and that silence becomes unforgettable. It has, and that's exactly where your power begins. FF. There comes a moment long after she has convinced herself she has moved on, when reality starts to pull at the threads of the story she created. At first, everything feels exciting and new for her, the fresh attention, the validation, the rush of distraction. It makes her believe she made a clean break from you. But the deeper truth is that emotions don't disappear just because someone steps into a new relationship. They simply get buried, and buried emotions always find a way back to the surface. That's why, even when she seems confident, even when she appears settled, there's an irritation she can't shake, because her mind keeps trying to check something. Why aren't you reacting? Why aren't you watching? Why aren't you waiting? Why aren't you hurt the way she expected you to be? This is where your silence becomes a mirror, one she can't avoid. It reflects back to her everything she didn't want to confront, that she didn't break you, that you aren't devastated, that life didn't stop spinning for you when she walked away. Women rarely expect emotional discipline from a man they once had deep access to. They expect familiarity. They expect the comfort of knowing you're still there. And when that comfort vanishes, unresolved thoughts begin to haunt them. She may not say it out loud. She may act unbothered, even proud, but she can't escape the restlessness building beneath the surface. Because while she moved into a new connection, She didn't expect to feel less chosen by you. She didn't expect you to adapt so quickly. She didn't expect to become an afterthought in your life. And the more she tries to distract herself with someone new, the more obvious her internal conflict becomes. She starts comparing subtly at first, then consistently, not because she wants to, but because the mind naturally contrasts the unfamiliar with the familiar. She compares how you made her feel versus how this new person makes her feel. She compares your patience to his impatience, your emotional depth to his superficial charm, your stability to his unpredictability. She compares the way you listen to the way he dismisses, the way you cared to the way he overlooks. And every comparison changes the way she looks at her new reality. The new relationship once felt like freedom. Now it begins to feel like a reminder that what she had with you wasn't so easily replaced. She won't show it, she won't admit it, but she feels it. A subtle dissatisfaction grows. A silence she didn't expect from your end becomes louder inside her mind than any words you could have spoken. And instead of feeling relieved, she starts feeling unsettled. Because if she truly moved on, why does she still wonder if you're thinking about her? Why does she still feel bothered by your absence? Why does the thought of you living well, improving, rebuilding disturb her peace? It's simple. She misread your capacity to detach. She mistook your love for dependency. She confused your loyalty with weakness. And now that you've shown emotional strength, she doesn't know how to process it. Women never fear losing a man they think they can always return to. They fear losing a man who no longer needs them. That's why your silence bites deeper over time. It doesn't just represent distance, it represents growth. It represents self respect. It represents the version of you she never imagined she would lose for good. And that's what bothers her the most, the possibility that she may have been replaced in your heart long before she ever expected. Because deep down, she knows that no matter who she's with now, your silence is the one thing she can't outrun. Ash, and that's when regret quietly begins to grow. There comes a moment in her new relationship when the truth hits her harder than she ever expected. The emotional connection she once had with you isn't something she can recreate on command. She thought she could. She genuinely believed that stepping into something new would erase the bond she shared with you. But emotional history doesn't disappear simply because she chose a different path. What she had with you is built over time through trust, vulnerability, understanding, and the comfort of someone who truly saw her. And when she tries to replicate that connection with someone new, she realizes just how rare that level of closeness actually was. In the beginning, the excitement of her new relationship blinds her. Everything feels light, fun, and effortless. She mistakes novelty for compatibility. She mistakes distraction for healing. She mistakes attention for affection. But as the initial excitement fades, as familiarity settles in, she starts to notice something missing, something she can't quite name at first. She feels it in the way conversations don't go as deep. She feels it in the way the new person handles conflict or avoids it entirely. She feels it in the way intimacy lacks emotional warmth, in the way latter doesn't feel as genuine, in the way comfort doesn't feel as safe. And little by little, she begins recognizing that emotional connection isn't something she can replace just by choosing someone new. This is where her internal struggle intensifies. She starts comparing, not intentionally, but naturally. She remembers the way you understood her without her explaining every detail. She remembers the way you paid attention to things she didn't even notice about herself. She remembers the way you cared with depth, effort, and consistency. She remembers the way you created space for her to be vulnerable without fear. The new person doesn't give her the same feeling, and that difference becomes clearer with time. Instead of feeling more connected, she feels more distant. Instead of feeling fulfilled, she feels more aware of what she lost. What she didn't understand before is that emotional bonds don't fade, they echo. They show up when she least expects them. They return in moments of quiet, during arguments, during stress, during late night thoughts. She feels those echoes now, reminding her that connection isn't something she can force. And ironically, it is your silence that strengthens those echoes. She tries to convince herself she doesn't care, but she does. She tries to pretend you're irrelevant, but you're not. She tries to act like her new connection is deeper, but she knows it's not close. And as these realizations grow, so does her discomfort. She starts questioning why the new relationship doesn't feel as emotionally rich. She starts wondering why she doesn't feel truly understood. She starts noticing how emotionally detached she feels Even while being physically present with someone else, this creates an inner conflict she can't explain to her new partner, and she definitely can't admit it to herself easily because admitting it would mean acknowledging that she walked away from something real, something she now knows she may never find again. The emotional connection she had with you becomes the standard she compares everything else to. Even when she tries not to, the deeper truth is that she didn't just lose a partner, she lost a sense of emotional safety that she took for granted. And now every failed attempt to recreate that closeness only strengthens her regret because she thought she upgraded, she thought she improved her situation, she thought she'd feel happier, freer, lighter. Instead, she feels the weight of emotional emptiness creeping in. And the more she feels it, the more she realizes that what she once had with you wasn't ordinary, it was rare, it was meaningful. It was something she didn't know how to appreciate when she had it. And that's exactly when the regret begins to grow deeper than she ever imagined. Erish, there comes a moment in her new relationship when the mask finally starts to slip, not because she wants it to, but because pretending becomes exhausting. In the beginning, everything looked perfect on the outside. The pictures, the dates, the smiling moments she posted online, all of it was carefully curated to convince the world and herself that she had moved on effortlessly. But emotional truth is heavier than image, and eventually it pushes through every attempt she makes to hide it. What she begins to realize is that even in this new chapter of her life, her emotions don't behave the way she expected them to, and your silence becomes the one thing she can't outrun. She starts to notice the cracks during the quiet moments, the ones without distraction, without noise, without attention. When the excitement fades and real life settles in, she begins to feel uncomfortable with the truth she tried to bury. Her heart doesn't fully belong to this new relationship the way she told herself it would. She thought emotional distance from you would disappear once she connected with someone else, but it doesn't work that way. Now she's forced to sit with the uncomfortable reality that her feelings don't match her choices. And that internal mismatch creates cracks she can't control. Those cracks show up in the way she responds differently now. She withdraws at times. She becomes impatient or emotionally numb. She doesn't laugh as naturally. She feels irritated by things she can't explain. It's not that her new partner is doing something wrong. It's that she's emotionally split between the person she's trying to move toward and the person she still hasn't fully moved on from. And when she starts feeling these inconsistencies, she begins to panic quietly. She starts worrying that she may have acted too fast, too impulsively, too emotionally. The cracks become reminders that some part of her still reacts to you, still remembers you, still feels you even in silence. The truth is, emotional bonds don't break clean. They fracture, but they leave pieces behind. And those pieces show themselves through her behavior. When she catches herself comparing small things, like the way you communicated, the way you held space for her, the way you understood her, she feels guilty. She knows it's unfair to compare. She knows it's not healthy. But emotions don't follow rules. They surface even when she tries to suppress them. This creates an internal pressure she can't explain to anyone. She can't tell her friends because they think she's happy. She can't tell her new partner because it would shake the foundation of the new relationship. And she definitely can't tell you because her pride won't allow it. So she hides it, but hiding it only intensifies it. She starts overthinking why she still feels triggered by your silence. She wonders why she still checks her phone subconsciously for your name. She questions why certain memories replay in her mind at the most random times. The emotional cracks become more obvious to her, even if she tries to pretend otherwise, and soon these cracks don't just affect her mentally, they impact her relationship. She becomes inconsistent. One moment she's fully engaged with her new partner, and the next she's distant. One moment she feels happy, and the next she feels empty. And the silence from you, and the silence pours salt into every crack until they widen. She knows she can't reach out. She knows doing so would admit something she's not ready to face, but the cracks keep spreading anyway, slowly, quietly, relentlessly. Every time she thinks she has finally moved on, another emotional reminder surfaces, another comparison slips through her mind. Another piece of the past reminds her that her heart isn't aligned with her current choices. Eventually, she must face the truth she tried so hard to avoid. She didn't heal, she distracted herself, and distractions always wear off. Accident in the end, those emotional cracks reveal everything she tried to hide, forcing her to confront the feelings she hoped would disappear in your absence. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, and almost invisible to everyone around her, when she realizes that pretending she doesn't care is far more exhausting than simply admitting the truth to herself. And this is where the sixth point becomes undeniable, as your silence forces her into emotional self reflection she can't escape. That this is the kind of reflection she never planned for, never wanted, and never thought she'd have to face. But silence has a strange power. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, it doesn't defend, it just exists. And in that stillness, her real feelings start rising to the surface, whether she likes it or not. At first, she tried to drown out that silence with attention from someone new. She thought being in another relationship would replace those internal echoes, would rewrite the emotional script playing in the back of her mind. But the silence didn't fade. It followed her into the new relationship, into her daily routines, into the moments when she was alone and scrolling, into the moments when she caught herself remembering something you once said. The silence became a mirror, one she couldn't turn away from, and in that mirror, she begins to confront questions she once avoided. Why does she still think about you? Why does she still feel something when she notices your absence? Why does your silence sting more than the presence of her new relationship soothes? These thoughts don't appear all at once. They creep in slowly, layered beneath everything she tries to project outward happiness, excitement, connection. But no matter how convincing her performance is, silence is more powerful than performance, because silence carries the weight of what she lost, what she walked away from, and what she never resolved within herself. And this emotional confrontation begins shaping her inner world in ways she didn't expect. She starts analyzing her own actions, replaying old conversations and old decisions. She starts questioning motives, hers, yours, and even the one she's with now. She wonders if she acted out of impulse, out of pride, out of temporary emotion. And once a woman begins examining her past decisions from a place of emotional discomfort, she will inevitably uncover truth she tried to ignore. That truth is often simple. She wasn't done with you, not emotionally, not fully, not at all. Your silence becomes a type of emotional contrast. It highlights everything missing, everything unresolved, everything she thought she would easily replace in a new relationship. She compares subconsciously, not because she wants to, but because emotional memory doesn't disappear just because a new relationship begins. Emotional memory follows her everywhere, and silence strengthens it. Every little thing about the new guy that doesn't match what she once felt with you becomes more noticeable. Every emotional gap becomes louder. Every moment she doesn't feel understood creates an internal alarm. Eventually, she doesn't just reflect, she starts to feel regret. Regret doesn't arrive dramatically, it arrives slowly, like a steady drip of awareness. She realizes the things she overlooked when she had you. She realizes the familiarity, stability, comfort, and connection she once dismissed now feel more valuable than she ever admitted. She realizes that the silence she thought would liberate her from the past has instead forced her to face the past honestly. And the more this reflection deepens, the more she understands something she tried to deny. She expected you to chase, she expected you to break the silence, she expected you to need her more than she needed space. When you didn't, her entire emotional framework shook. And that shift forces her to evaluate her own patterns, her own definitions of love, her own value system. She begins to see you differently, not as the person she left behind, but as the person she may have misjudged. And seeing you differently means seeing herself differently. That's the uncomfortable part, because self reflection always reveals truths we weren't prepared for. And in her case, those truths lead her back to one undeniable reality. Extra silence didn't push her away, it forced her to confront everything she refused to face. And now she's the one who can't escape the weight of her own emotions.